Warning. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely the personal opinions of Azmat Sherwani and any guest featured on the show. These opinions do not reflect the views of any other organization, Azmat Sherwani, or his guests, who are directly or indirectly affiliated with. All content shared is for entertainment and informational purposes only and should not be considered as fact. Any comments made about specific organizations, in particular, are not limited to Uber, Autocab, iCabbi, Cab9, or Cordic regarding their operations staff or data sharing practices, are purely personal opinions and are not to be taken as factual statements. Please consider this podcast as subjective commentary and not as verified information. Enjoy the show.
Do you believe the dispatch providers have too much power within this industry? Do you think you influenced the other fleets to follow you out of Autocab?
Some new management team came in. I could see that I was never going to be able to work with these people.
So I'm going to ask you upright, would Visu have taken the Autocab Uber work if it was available to them?
One for the road. One for the road, are you ready? Let us sit and talk, take a sip and talk. Take a sip. One for the road, everybody. Let us sit and talk, take a sip.
Mr. Andy Pennock.
Hi, Azmat.
How are you, sir?
Good, thank you. Good to see you.
Brilliant. So I will say a massive thank you for coming on, first of all. In terms of your history, Amber Cars, Visu, everything that you've been involved in, obviously you are, as Scott Ashmore or Craig call you, the godfather of the industry. But I will 100% tell you, you are definitely the most requested. When I've been saying I've been doing these podcasts about who we should get on, you've definitely been the most requested. I even asked Arnie the other a while back, and he said you need to get Andy on. So I'm very.
Is that because Arnie won't come on?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure. Yeah, palming me off. I'm sure he will. But let's start by doing the traditional cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.
So cheers to you, mate.
Ooh, spilling it.
Now, I tell you why, you got a text from me today to say make sure I've got my football colours on.
Yeah, Leeds are back in the Premiership. That's good news, isn't it?
It is good news. I should probably start by my first question being, was it a mistake selling Eric Cantona in 1992 to Manchester United?
Yes.
And I'm actually wearing this one. Hold on, I'm just going to move my mic, but I don't know if you can see this, but this is actually the Champions 21.
Yeah.
It was to celebrate us winning the English title 20 times.
Much last year?
No, that's why I wore a really old shirt, because the new one.
Leeds are playing you in a friendly in a few weeks. You know about that?
I didn't actually know. When's that?
We're playing you in. I think we're playing you in Stockholm in a pre-season. Well, I won't call it a friendly.
Never a friendly. No.
We're not friendly about it, but I think it were a good idea for the top of the Championship to play some of the lower teams in the Premiership from last year to give us an idea of what's going on.
What's going to happen, yeah. I mean, you've got a lot of love for Leeds. I'm not just talking about the football, because obviously we know you're an avid Leeds football fan, but in terms of the city as well, yeah, and your history. So your background, so you're a Leeds lad, born and raised, or what's your background?
Raised, yeah, in Leeds. I'm from Leeds. Went to school in Leeds.
Yeah.
My parents split up when I was very, very young, so I ended up in Bradford, actually, where I live now. Someone had to complain about for a short period of time while we got somewhere to live. But yeah, Leeds has been, my first school in Leeds. And
I don't think Pennock Manor quite qualifies as Bradford, if I'm honest with you.
Do you not? No. It takes me 2 minutes to walk into Leeds from there, and
fair play.
20 minutes to walk into Bradford.
Fair play. And one thing I've got to ask you about is I just joked about the Godfather bit earlier. Are you aware about the level of respect that you've got within the industry and how highly people regard you? Because Arnie, and this is from me as an outsider looking in, right? Arnie gets pretty brown-nosed in the sense of, like, if I'm doing an event, people will say to me, "Oh, is Arnie going?" Because I'll go if Arnie's going, or what, stuff like that. And if you ask Arnie who he looks up to and who's his mentor, that's you. You know what I mean? So the amount of respect that you've got amongst your peers is massive. Are you aware of it, or thoughts on it?
Well, I don't feel it from them guys. It's reciprocal. I learn a lot from them, and hopefully they learn a lot from me. But I'm 40 years this year in the industry.
Yeah.
I started my first business at 49 and at 19, and I'm 59 now, so I'm 40 years in the industry. So you learn a lot, don't you, in 40 years? And but I've learned a lot from them guys as well, from all the people that I've met throughout the years, whether it be Arnie, whether it be James, whether it be Shanks, whether it be Amjad down at DG. I used to spend a lot of time listening to them guys. They've all got nuggets of knowledge.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
That teach you, and there's many more of them.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Amber. So I'll tell you about what I know of Amber. I know of Amber being the absolute colossal giant in the north that it was. I first heard of you because obviously I'd come fresh into the industry and I joined Autocab, and I'd heard of you, and I'll give you my narrative of what I've heard, and I'm guessing you'll educate me with the truth.
Well, I don't think I was at Autocab when you joined.
No. You'd left Autocab, so you'd already gone. All that the iCabbi stuff and everything had already happened, and so here's my understanding of what took place there. So you're a massive fleet, big in Leeds, influential across the UK, and ultimately what took place was that you wanted to, you decided to make an app or design an app, or you wanted to launch your own app. You went to Fowler and said, this is my app, this is my technology. Fowler said to you, why don't you worry about being a taxi company and let me worry about being the being the technology provider, as the famous phrase that I've been always told. You guys had a fallout, and on the back of that fallout, iCabbi got an inroad into the industry, and you ended up taking iCabbi to market. But then, again, I'm not sure if this is correct, but it's also my understanding you spoke at Fowler's funeral, right? So the two didn't really coincide, if it was a big fallout or whatever. But that is pretty much the story I've always had. Now, if you want to give me,
that's not. There's probably elements of truth within it, but that's not really how it.
Yeah. So do you want to take us through what happened with them? But obviously, I want to talk about bringing iCabbi to market, because I've always felt that if you hadn't done it, then people like James, Arnie, etc., wouldn't have adopted, and the size wouldn't have grown, and the snowball. So I wanted to ask you about iCabbi, but we'll do that separately. So let's do Fowler Autocab situation. What actually happened?
Well, I think you should really go back to the beginning where we met. Where I first ever came across Autocab. I can remember it must have been a Sunday night in Huddersfield. It was my only day off that I ever got.
Yeah.
I worked so much, I got Sundays off. I were in a bar in Huddersfield called Johnny's Bar, and I bumped into Fowler. Never knew him or anything like that. I just got chatting at the bar. He worked for Johnny doing his IT in his bars. He had a lot of bars and a hotel and everything like that. And I met him there. He asked me what I did. I told him what I did. And he says, I've developed a taxi booking system for somebody, and it never took off. It sat at home in me. So I said, I'd love to see it, Anyway, we had a great night out and enjoyed ourselves, as you did with Fowler.
Yeah.
And then I came back to work, forgot all about it. 6 months later, one Saturday night, we had to have a doorman on his door on a Saturday night, because where our offices were really rough.
Right.
There used to be a lot of trouble outside, and doorman shouts up, says, Andy, there's a guy down here. Says he's met you in Huddersfield and he's got a computer for you. I'm like, what's that? Comes downstairs and it was Fowler. Anyway, up he comes, leaves me this computer, says, let me know what you think about it. And that's where it all started. That's where everything started. So it went on from there. I told him what I thought about it. He changed it. Eventually, we got a great system, and he got a great system, and it all worked. And that's probably where Autocab came from originally.
Yeah. So no one's ever told me how influential you were in because that sounds like you were very influential in the growth of Autocab itself.
Well, I was his customer.
Yeah.
And then sold it to her. I remember, that's where I met everybody really. I met Ian Shanks and James and Amjad and the guys at Wheels in Leeds. They bought it. I mean, they were competitors, but we were happy to share that technology. So yeah, it was interesting because we got what we wanted and we grew it. There's some fantastic people working there. He had a partner. Well, they weren't really a partner, but he worked with him, Phil Baker. And then Jim Walsh came along. and Chris Wrigley and all them people, and Alison. I think she still works there. Alison.
She does, Alison. Yeah.
Amazing. She's been there for a long time. So I sort of grew with all them people, and my business grew because of that. So they gave a lot to me, as well as me giving a lot to them. It worked. It were a reciprocal agreement. It were good times. But the fallout wasn't so much what you said was. I did build my own app because I think at that point in time, Fowler didn't see apps as something important. And I had a young son who had all friends, and they were all starting to use apps, and I just thought it was. I think that was around 2011.
Yeah.
So I decided to build my own app for myself, and I don't think Fowler didn't really take exception to that. He were okay with that because I didn't agree with the app that he built. It was like a web-based app instead of a native app, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I built my own app. And it worked, and it took off, and it were really good. And quite a few people actually took it off me.
Is this the Pocketworks app?
The Pocketworks app,
yeah, okay.
It's a Pocketworks app. I built it in conjunction with Pocketworks.
Yeah.
It's still used now.
Yeah.
It's widely used now. And, and that really wasn't... But throughout that process, later on in that process, when Fowler got poorly, there were... I was building another product... which was something to do with SMS marketing and stuff like that. So I was marketing through the SMS messages and I always used to get him involved with the products because you needed the APIs into his system to do it. And I had a partner that had been with me a long time called Paul Green, who was, he did all the technology, all that type of technology for me, and he was building it into it. And I wasn't getting no help from Autocab, and Fowler wasn't really answering, which he normally did. And so I sort of built that product in a way that probably upset him a little bit. We sort of hacked into the system to make it work. But we only did that because I wasn't getting much back from Autocab or from Fowler individually. They weren't answering me and everything like that. I didn't know at that time it was Paul. He'd not told me. I don't think he'd told anybody really.
Right.
I think probably only his immediate family knew about it. So when he did finally, get a bit of peace and a bit of time to come back and look at what were going on, it took a little bit of an exception to what I'd done. And we did have words, but we made up very quickly. So I think that's probably the reason why, I did speak at his funeral. We'd been through a lot, and that argument was particularly not my fault and definitely not his fault. He had his own battles that he were fighting and things like that. So that really what we fell out with at that time, but we had not fallen out, badly, or by the end we'd not fallen out. No.
Right, and so just to go back, just so I get this right, your app, when you said other people were taking it off you, does that mean that Fowler allowed you to have the API integration and it was working with Autocab?
For the app, yes.
Right.
The argument was over the SMS marketing.
SMS marketing. Okay,
that
cool.
was the argument. The argument was never over the app.
Okay, and so this is going on. Obviously, Fowler's unwell, and then tell me what happens with iCabbi. 3 Irish fellows give you a call, or what actually took place there?
No. So unfortunately, we lost Fowler.
Yeah.
And a new management team came in, which. They looked at the industry completely different to how Fowler had looked at it.
Yeah.
Their idea was that they believed that our customers were their customers, or they felt that they should be their customers.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm never going to stand for that, and I don't think anybody with a right business mind is going to stand for it. And you could see they were going down that road, and I think that's where the app came into it, really, because at that point they threatened to turn my app off, which were taking, at that point, I think 13 or 15,000 bookings per week, which is not acceptable. I'm their customers. They're going to turn an app off that I've had for quite a few years. So I could see that I was never going to be able to work with these people. I think they'd misread their customer base badly.
Yeah.
And I think that they saw our customers as their future, whereas I saw my customers as my future.
Yeah.
So I went looking for an alternative, and I think they believe that there wasn't no alternative out there.
Yeah.
They probably weren't far wrong, to be fair,
no,
at that time.
So I will say, so obviously they'd had, issues with Ariga before, where Ariga taken customers and I think took some staff or whatever, and they'd had those kind of battles with Ariga, and then iCabbi came along, and I'm guessing they would have just thought that iCabbi was just going to be another Ariga, come and go type of.
Well, at that stage, they didn't know what iCabbi was. I went over to with Chris and Ted and Paul. We all went over to Chicago to see a system out in America. I knew Ariga. I knew it quite well. It was legacy code. It wasn't scalable. It was we were looking to grow, and I didn't see that system as the future. So really there were Cordic, and again I felt the same about Cordic. They're just not dynamic enough or anything like that. The good thing about Autocab, it was, well, Fallow was there. It was always dynamic. You could always sit down and have a conversation and say, look, this is where I need my business to go, and he'd ask me why do you need it to like that. I'd explain to him. He'd go, yeah, okay, we'll build that. And we'll go for it. As he got bigger, obviously things got a little bit slower, but that's another story that happened with iCabbi at the time. So eventually, I heard about, and I don't know how I heard about them, to be honest. I heard about this Irish team who was building a system, and Paul Green, my tech guy, my computer guy, says to me, that is where we need to go. It's in the cloud. I went, it's not even alive. It's like, it's got one customer and it's not, he went, yeah, but the technology's the future, and he believed in the technology and I believed in Paul. So I said, well, let's meet him. So off we goes over to Ireland into this little cottage up this back street with these guys that were obviously skint.
Yeah.
And knew nothing about the English market. But what really did impress me was Gav and the guys behind it were listening. They really wanted to know, and you could tell they wanted to get into the market, they wanted to understand the market. And they admitted they didn't know the UK market, they knew nothing about it. And what impressed Paul was Niall O'Callaghan, who understood the cloud. And the cloud was reasonably new at that, back then. When's that? 2013, I think. 2012, 2013. So I might be a year out there, but I think it's about right. So that impressed Paul. So we sort of came back home, sat down, thought about it. Things were not getting any better with my relationship with Autocab. In fact, they were getting worse. So I knew I had to make a move. So we invited them over to Leeds. So they came over to Leeds, and we give them a ginormous list of what we want. And they said, well, do you know what? We'll stay in Leeds and we'll start building it. And that's really, they stayed in the IBIS budget. The IBIS budget in Leeds is rough. Right. Niall O'Callaghan he didn't love it, and neither did Gav. In fact, I think Gav went, well, you don't need me, Niall, I'm going back home. So Niall were in and out of our offices on a regular basis.
Right.
Looking, asking us questions, building it. And that's where it started, and that's where it went from.
So two parts on that then. So let's talk about the Autocab stuff in terms of how you weren't getting on with the new management, shall we say? Yeah. Okay. I think every guest I've had on has pretty much said that they feel apart from Akil, that they've always felt the same way in terms of Safa coming over, because he was Mr. Silicon Valley. I think he'd done some stuff over there, and the way that he was just didn't fit, and the likability factor, and he hasn't got it right. There's many people that you named, like Chris Lever, for example, and people like that who, because I think what happens with taxi and why I've always got on in taxi is working class background and the way I am and stuff like that, and the way that people are. We all gel and we get on.
Yeah.
A lot of people have done well for ourselves, or however it may be, but the bulk of it are lads who used to be drivers who've done all right.
You need to be a certain type of character to run
exactly.
a taxi firm. You can't be
exactly the corporate. I don't know any apart from obviously your super fleets now, in terms of who might need a corporate identity, etc. Your Addison Lees and your Visus, etc. But what I mean is, the way our industry is, the way everyone is, they are working class background, salt of the earth people, and the thing is, Safa isn't that. So I think, well. But what I am told, and I didn't have the honour of meeting him, but I've heard that Fowler was an incredible guy. His son isn't like that, and neither is obviously Fowler, is Safa. Do you think that played a massive part in it, about the fact that the personal identity or the personal connection that you would get from a Gavin Walsh, right? Because he's you know, my relationship with Gav, proper likable kind of guy, and he'll listen to you and he'll and work with you. But the fact you didn't get that with Safa and Hassan, do you think that played a factor into it?
I think it's pretty obvious, really. Your dispatch system is one of the most important things in your business.
Yeah.
It runs your business.
Yeah.
You've got to trust, you've got to believe in, and you've got to get on with these people that you're putting your business in their hands, really, aren't you? So yes, that 100% that is the case. You've got to be able to have a relationship with them, and vice versa. Because they don't want a customer that's constantly giving them aggravation to build things that are not needed. I saw that lots and lots of times with Autocab and with iCabbi, where you meet a customer and the customer just thinks about themselves and not. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
And you need a partnership, and I could not bring myself to have a partnership with the new team. It just wasn't there.
So, do you think you influenced the other fleets to follow you out the door out of Autocab? Because let's face it, when James was on here, I wasn't aware of the timeline. It was like 1 October, 1 January, 1 February.
I think we went in September, Arnie went in October, and it were getting a bit close to Christmas. James went in January. He was sort of hiding away from Autocab for quite a while and trying to, keep the peace a little bit before he moved. He didn't want them really to know about it.
Yeah. Well, I can see why, because otherwise you'd if they were threatening to switch your app off and stuff like that, it was one of them. Your hands were tied a little bit, and I can see why you wouldn't want it out. So here's a pretty bold.
I think the reason they threatened to switch my app off because they'd probably heard the story that you'd heard, that I'd fallen out with Fowler over it, and they were probably just trying to stick up for themselves. But they didn't do it.
Yeah, no, fair play. I'm going to ask you a very bold question. Do you think that iCabbi would be the largest dispatch provider on the planet right now? And you said they were skint. They're certainly not skint anymore. Do you think they'd be in a position of where they're in if they had never met Andy Pennock?
I mean, you've asked me 2 questions now. Which one do you want me? You're running away with yourself. Let's answer the first question. The first question is, did I influence people to leave?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So no, I didn't. They didn't need influencing. They saw what I saw. James saw what I saw. Arnie saw what I saw. It were obvious that the new team wanted our customers to be their revenue stream. Yeah. And it's obvious that we want our customers to be our revenue stream. So no, I didn't influence them. Them guys knew exactly what it was. The only point was that I said I'd been looking and I'd found somewhere. What do you think? Why don't you come and meet these guys? So I asked them to come and meet them. I can remember it today. We were all sat in my house in the back garden. It was a sunny day. It must have been June, July of that year, before. And I introduced them to these guys and I said, look, we've got to try and do some type of deal with these guys to fund them enough to carry on to build this system to get us out of the predicament that we're in, because we were in a predicament.
Yeah, of course.
So we all put in quite a decent chunk of change. So if they'd have not met me, would they have been? Not if they'd have met all 3 of us at that time. No, they'd have probably struggled. Yeah, that's true, but that's how it goes. They deserve as much as we deserve because they listened to us and they believed in us as well as we believed in them.
Yeah, I think it's any business. I think it's like with my business when I first started out. If I hadn't got like AirPay and a few of the others who started me off as my first campaigns, if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't have snowballed and got to where I am today. It is business, exactly.
That is business without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. So
if I hadn't met Fowler back in them days, my business wouldn't have grown like it a bit, and neither would his.
No.
It is two-way traffic.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. When the new team came in, it was all one way, or wanted to be one-way traffic, and we just couldn't allow that.
Do you think with the dispatchers as well, though, in terms of having, that initial, when you're in that startup phase, because there's other dispatchers now that I consider to be quite new in startup phase, where if they were wanting to win a fleet, a big powerhouse fleet, they'll do stuff for them. So they'll be like, "Oh, we'll develop this for you. We'll do," But ultimately, because I've worked with dispatchers, I know for a fact when, as a salesperson, if I make you as a fleet promises, I'll develop this for you, that for you, I'll go back to the office and the development team will be wanting to murder me because they'll be like, mate, you've put us in a hole for 2 years. Do you know what I mean? So Do you think that has a big part in it? Because whereas fleets can't demand from Autocabs and the iCabbies anymore, oh, I want this and I want it now, whereas back in the day, 10 years ago, you could do.
Yeah, well, I think if you look at Cab 9 and Ian Shanks and Blue Line and Tom and them guys up there, that's what's got them to where they've got to now. The relationship.
Yeah.
Because without Blue Line and Tom and Ian, they will influence the development of that because they understand the market so well.
Yeah.
So they'll influence the development of the Cab 9 system. So that's what's growing Cab 9, to the position where it is now. So the answer to your question is that everybody needs everybody. It is two-way traffic.
It is, but do you think do you see that as a positive or a negative? It's
win-win. Yeah.
But what's good for Ian Shanks and Blue Line good for maybe a 100-car fleet down in Southampton or London or something like that? What I'm trying to say is, are you not getting a...
iCabbi gets been accused of being good for big fleets.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think they've got a little way to go there of iCabbi to try and, because they've always been involved with big fleets.
Yeah.
But that I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Localism counts. What's good for someone in Leeds is not necessarily good for someone in Liverpool or Manchester.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you on that fact, because that is a criticism that iCabbi do take, is the fact that because it was built around the big boys with you guys, because of your influence, that it stayed that way. Mm-hmm. So I totally get it. But in terms of... So obviously, while we're on the dispatchers, we'll do the dispatchers bit now. So in terms of going back to Autocab, with everything that's gone on, because the last few episodes I've done, I've discussed about certain fleets leaving, etc. And I've just been told today of a colossal fleet that I could never have imagined leaving. I'm not going to talk about it because it's not been announced. But ultimately...
A UK fleet?
A UK fleet, one of their bread and butter, like friends almost, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I went through it with Akil that of like divides that they had, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on those kind of divides, but ultimately I was talking about racial divides and who stayed and who's not and who's left. And we went to number 25 in the list before we got to an English white owned fleet that was still with it. They weren't even English, it were value cabs actually. Chris McCausland, who was at number 25. But
yeah, Chris, what? Don't call him an Englishman.
No, don't call him an Englishman. I'm in trouble. But in terms of the massive decline that's taken place and these fleets that are leaving, there was obviously the influence that you had where iCabbi's customer base is, I would say, and I might get strung up by them for saying this, but I think majority of it is ex-Autocab. But since the Uber stuff happened, and everything that's gone on, do you blame them for leaving, or can you see why there's been a massive decline with Autocab? Because in their numbers, they're nowhere near where they need to be. I think they lost like 9 million quid last year. So
I think it's all down to relationships. I honestly do. I really do think. I don't think the technology's terrible. I think they took a bit of catching up to the cloud. I think iCabbi caught them off guard, really, because they came in with a technology that was, in theory, super. It was more flexible, wasn't it? The cloud's a lot more flexible than the estate version, which you could say that they had. When I left Autocab, I still had my server in my, in my office.
Yeah.
So iCabbi, and they did struggle to catch up quite a long time. They called it a hybrid system. They had a hybrid system.
Yeah.
We all knew.
Yeah. It went
but they've never had a bad system.
No, fair enough.
I can't say that they grew my business. Autocab's technology grew my business really, really well, and I didn't really want to. I wouldn't have left.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have left if the new team that had come in had been people that I could have worked with on a day-to-day basis. I wouldn't have left without. And I don't think anybody else would have. To be fair, I just think the market was misread.
So I'd say when it comes to technology, because you've got your other stuff like AirPay and other stuff that you're involved in. And we'll get to AirPay in a bit, but I want to talk to you about, so in terms of technology right now, as you mentioned that Autocab don't have a bad system. I don't think they've got a bad system. I wouldn't have been flogging it. Of all bad things anyone can say about me, like in terms of I won't flog something if I believe it's shit, right? So that's simple as that. I've got to believe in the product, I won't flog it. So
Do you believe that?
What's that?
Do you believe yourself there?
I do believe myself.
That's all right.
I do.
There's a funny smell around here.
Yeah, no, kind of. I've got to believe it's good, otherwise, it's impossible. It's impossible to sell. Truly sell. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Truly sell. If I think it's shit, I'll put one of the other lads on it. Don't worry. But do you think? So, in terms of technology, what do you think's going on? Because I'd like to know a couple of things, right? So, one, the iCabbi app is. So, I believe, and again, I'm going to get strung up for saying this, but in terms of dispatch systems, I think that iCabbi had the better dispatch system, but I believe that Autocab had better applications, okay? I think the driver companion and their passenger app was better until the Google partnership with and iCabbi and they brought out this new stuff,
I
right?
agree.
Yeah?
I agree.
Now that they brought this new Google partnership out, I think it absolutely and kicks the shit out of the Autocab apps, but that's obviously my personal opinion. So why? So the fleets that you're involved in, okay? Why aren't they using that app, and why are they using the Pocketworks app?
Veezu's fleets.
Visu fleets, yeah. And what about what are Drive using?
Well, Drive did use iCabbi's.
Okay, did it? Okay, so I
iCabbi's app, yeah.
Right.
I think it's all about owning your own technology and owning your own own route to market. So it's like I used to say to people, would you let someone else be in charge of your telephone numbers? Well, you answer me that question. Would you let someone else be in charge of your telephone? So the app's the same thing, is it not? It's a booking tool, isn't it? It's the way that your bookings come in, and I think Veezu's correct, in my view, to want to own their own technology. I actually agree with it. It depends how far you want to take it, but certainly your booking flows, your phone systems, your apps, your web bookers and things like that. And if you build them in the right way, whereas you can point them at any dispatch system, then they could move dispatch systems tomorrow and say, I'm going to point my app at Autocab, or I'm going to point my app at Cab9, or I'm going to move my phones to... But if you didn't own it, there's a problem then, isn't there? So your booking channels are really, really important to you, Azmat. You own that work that's coming your way, and you can walk away from anybody. You're not beholden to anybody and move away. I think the and you probably said you wanted to get on to iCabbi, but I think the key to it is having that proper relationship with your dispatch provider. Because do you want to own your own dispatch system? That's the question you'll probably ask me later on, isn't it?
Yeah, I will do, 100%. But I will say to you that in terms of, I get what you mean about owning the tool for your bookings, etc. But the thing is, for me, is that, are we talking about someone at Veezu's size? Because does a 400 car fleet in Derby or wherever need to own an app? It doesn't, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Right? But a 15,000 car fleet
definitely does.
It definitely does. Okay, so it's all about size.
But when you said you need to own your own app, you certainly need to have the app in your name.
Of course,
you need to be able to control, and not have that taken away from you.
Of course, yeah,
definitely. And that was a problem in the industry early on.
Yeah,
when you'd look at an app that was on the App Store when Autocab first brought theirs out, and the app would be in Autocab's name. That would rang alarm bells for me really badly. It should be in your name.
Yeah, I don't think they do that anymore, though.
I don't think they did it on purpose.
Right, okay.
I don't. People used to sell you, going back in time, people would sell you a free phone number, but you didn't own the free phone number. And then all of a sudden, you'd get thousands and thousands of people calling you free phone, and then they put the price up 2 and 3 and 4 times. You go, I'm not paying that. Oh, well, they'll buy it off me, and someone else will buy it off you. And then all them customers will be ringing. They'll be answering, a different taxi company will be answering. It's important that you own your own booking channels. It's really, really important.
So I'm going to ask you upright: would Veezu have taken the Autocab Uber work if it was available to them?
It's quite a good question. So I remember I was at the beginning of that. I was COO, so the decision ultimately at that stage lied with me.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure you know what the answer was from me personally was no. Safa, when I stopped being the COO, Safa did do his best to court Nathan, to try and get him to get onto that product. But, Nathan's, he always talks, always speaks to his team, and he spoke to me a lot about it. And my advice every single time was, Nathan, look, let's just not do that. That's not a great idea, giving your competitor access to your system. And there was quite a lot of pressure coming both ways, because in theory, it was a great idea.
Yeah.
In theory. it was a great idea. But Uber's not had, they have had some great moments in their life.
Where Uber fucked up, I think, is that they did a deal with Autocab, and what they're asking people to do is partner with them when their dispatch provider is owned by them. If they'd gone to and done a deal as an aggregator into the market, and come to all the dispatchers and said, we've got this new work,
some extra work.
We want to give everybody some extra work. There's no way of us controlling the data because it's with the dispatchers. All we're going to do is we're going to send you jobs out. Come work with us. We'll have local cab. I reckon a lot of people would have taken it. I reckon. I think
a lot of people did take it though, didn't they?
Well, they did.
A lot of people did take it.
Out of their 1,000 fleets that they had, I think it was around 80. So they weren't. They didn't.
Well, I think if you hadn't have been stood on top of ice cream vans with your megaphone, it might have been 380, might it?
Might have been, yeah, might have been. But I really enjoyed myself doing that, I'm not going to lie.
It was quite funny.
I pretended it would work. Wow, what a fucking cracking time.
I mean, it was cringeworthy at some point, but do you know what? Fair play to you.
Oh, why not? But so do you think that would have been a better route to market for Uber?
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah?
Without a shadow of a doubt, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. And because then it's plausible, isn't it?
Okay. Why does Uber own Autocab now? Because they don't do the cab locals gone, yeah? They don't share in work anymore. In the UK specifically, in Europe and stuff, it's not really taking off for them. So why do you think they own Autocab right now?
Why do you think they own them?
I think they are not. I doubt they'll own it for much longer. I think they'll either turn it off or flog it. Or
But why did you think they bought them?
I think they bought them to gain access into areas all across the world in the UK that they couldn't get access to.
To understand the market. Yeah.
To get into those areas.
Yeah.
So basically, in Hull, in particular, when they got I think, was it who was doing was it Hull Cars who were doing the work?
Yes,
they were doing Uber work, right? Then they got the license in Hull. Yeah. Obviously, you owned a fleet in Hull at the time. Yeah. Do you know what got said in that council meeting, or how they got the application through, or what happened? So have they gone in and said, we've already been operating in your area for...
Yeah, we're not going to... We're going to open an office. We'll have a full-time staff here. They just said what they needed to say to get a license, and then did what they wanted to do.
Do you think having the Uber work, having the relationship already in the city with their app doing work, influenced the decision for the council to get it over the line?
Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I mean, I would imagine so. Yeah. Well, we're here already, so why not? Why not let us come in anyway?
Exactly. So that I thought, and again, I think that's why I think they bought Autocab, and now they're doing the same kind of relationships across Europe, and they're trying to get into fleets all across Europe.
Surely the European fleets are not. They've seen what's gone on in the UK.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've made loads of them aware of it. So ultimately, there's megaphone, yeah, but in German and in Spanish and French, like fucking translator next to me, fucking. But I think, well, we told loads of them. Loads of them know about it. The only ones who have done it, who are looking for a cheap deal or a quick win, or an abundance of Uber work, and they want to sell quickly. So David Hunter had come on and said he were looking at it for Take Me, because initial plan, I think any company that wanted to do the Uber work, triple their work or whatever the hell it might have been, and then flog their business. Right. Well, why not? In, out, see you never. I'm not bothered.
I'm not sure whether it stack up with due diligence with Visu.
Well, yeah.
To be fair.
So talk to me about the sale to Visu. Okay. So were you one of the first fleets? How were you the third, weren't you? Or so?
Yeah, there were before me. There was Dragon Cars in Cardiff, and there was Cardiff and Bridgend actually, and then there was A to B in Birmingham, Mark and Trevor, and they introduced me to the guys at Visu.
Right. Okay.
It was a long process. I think we'd been talking for over a year before, I finally did a deal.
And did you do you think you did a deal at the right time? What I'm asking is,
me personally,
it
was the best deal I've ever done.
Right.
Because I took shares. In Visu, and that was the best.
And if you don't want to share this, that's absolutely fine. But have you still got a substantial shareholding in Visu now?
It's not substantial anymore, but we've had sort of exit since, but yeah, I've still got shareholding in Visu, yeah.
Okay, cool. And do you think you sold it at the right time? As in, do you reckon you would have got a better deal if you would have done it now at the time Arnie's done it, etc.?
I'd have got more money
Yeah.
in terms of what I sold my business for,
Yeah.
but not in terms of what my shares have got me back.
Right. Okay.
So I were better off.
So long term, it's paid off. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Do you think, because obviously Visu are doing a very I don't know if it's an aggressive or enthusiastic approach to going out to the market to try to recruit fleets, to try and acquire as many fleets as possible. Okay. Do you think it's a good idea for fleets to be selling to Visu?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Talk us through it. Why should a fleet...
Well, I'm a shareholder. I'm a shareholder for one. So really the question is...
So talk to us...
I'm a bit biased.
You are? Okay, right. If I take your shareholding out of it...
I need to stop drinking this now, yeah.
Take your shareholding out of it and think about... So let's say, for example, if Visu were an Alpha or... streetcars or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Why should a fleet like that be wanting to be sold to Visu at the minute?
You'd have to ask them. I mean, you know, if you look at Alpha and you look at streetcars, two fantastic businesses run by people that have been in the industry for a long time that really understand the market. And if you watch them, they diversify, they change with the times.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the quality of it. I think the problem with smaller fleets is that they're getting overwhelmed by the Ubers of this world and maybe even the Visus of this world, you know, people that are doing, and the Bradleys of this world and the streetcars of this world, you know, people that are really good at the job and know what they're doing. And then, you know, your Visus and your Bradleys and these guys, they all understand their local market, so that they do cause trouble for the smaller fleets. So if I were a smaller fleet and I had an offer and the offer was good, I'd probably take it. Because when I look at, you can see I've done lots of due diligence on business, I bought lots of businesses, whether it's for myself or whether it's for Visu, bought lots of businesses. And when I look at these fleets and I buy them, and I not only do I buy the business, I always look to buy their inefficiencies as well.
Yeah.
You know, you look at a business and you look, what is it doing wrong? And none of them are into the detail. They'll set something going, and then they'll just forget about it, and they won't follow up and they won't watch it. They don't really. I've been into fleets and go, how many calls you doing a week? And they look at how many jobs they've covered. Yeah, but how many calls are coming in? Oh, I don't know how many calls are coming in. Just the little things that they should understand. Prioritising the jobs, prioritising the right type of driver for the right type of job.
Yeah.
All these things, all the things that the system can do that they just never do.
Yeah.
They were in, when they started the business, they were in the right place at the right time. But unfortunately, the industry's changed. You know, now you really need to be on top of your game. You need to be looking at your systems, making sure your systems are right. And not just everybody starts concentrating on the app now. Oh, we've got to fight Uber. Actually, they've got it wrong. You know, they do have to do that. They definitely have to do that, but they mustn't forget about the traditional market. And a lot of people forget about the traditional market. Answering the phone is just so important. And answering the phone correctly, taking the right details, doing all these things are absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
So small fleets aren't doing that.
No.
They're not doing it. And if they were doing it, they'd be growing.
Yeah.
Because there's growth in the market, but people are just not into the details.
What's the growth been like at Amber since Amber got phased out and Visu came in? What's the growth been like?
Well, we sold at the time, funnily enough, going back to this, when I sold Amber, it was in the first year of Uber coming.
Yeah.
So that was a difficult period.
Yeah.
You know, and credit to Visu, and that they don't, it doesn't seem to faze them. You know, and I think they understand that you're going to have, and we do understand it, you're going to have a period of downturn before you level out, and then you can start, excuse me, bit of hay fever today. You can start coming back again. So we did have a downturn, but at Leeds we've had good growth. You know, it's doing well. Within the tough markets that we're in, Leeds is probably one of our better performers.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, in terms of, I think the safety net of a Visu is the fact of, as you've just said, if there's people who are not doing what they need to do to be able to compete against Uber in an area, and I do believe Uber is being the main threat, it's about, will you still have a business in a few years' time in comparison to whether you would do a deal with a Visu, and that's where I see the benefit in it. I think, again, with and I've picked up, I've said this previously as well, but I think money talks, and So your iCabbies and your Autocabs, just like they've got a Renault and an Uber behind them, so they can fund development and whatnot. So it's a much harder for other dispatchers to compete. I think it's the same thing with Visu. If you've got Visu, you're part of the Visu family, and you are Visu have got a lot more resource to go after to be able to battle Uber than you as a 80 car fleet, arse end of Lancashire, not knowing what you're doing.
Sure, and they're a lot more flexible. They've got a lot more knowledge within the business. I mean, just recently we've been discussing, they've brought a team in that's from the disruptor world, that understand the Uber side of it, the Bolt side of it, the Ola side of it, and everything like that. They've got that team in there, and then they've got the traditional team that and they've been trying to work out where the balance should be. Should the balance be more concentrating on the disruptor and going toe-to-toe with Uber? Should it be concentrating on the dispatch market? So they're always having these conversations. But the beauty for Visu is that they've got that team in there that they can call upon and everything like that. So they can still buy businesses and buy their inefficiencies and grow them businesses.
Okay. I tell you what, who I'm really impressed with in Visu is Nia Cooper.
Nia.
I think she's
Nia's
incredible.
I don't know how Nia's still awake. She works very hard.
Well, yeah, she was our Woman of the Year last year.
Yeah.
And absolutely, from conversation that I've had with her,
with me and Nia have not always seen eye to eye, but respect, because she works hard and don't mind saying what she thinks.
No, she certainly doesn't mind saying what she thinks. I'll back that up. But yeah, she with what she did with all the VAT stuff and all that kind of stuff.
She understands. She's
incredible.
This industry up and run with it, and she understands it.
And I'll just say that to you, exactly what you just said. I thought she was actually from the industry. So
no, she's learned very quickly.
I know, that's what I mean. But when you're talking to her, you'd expect
don't meet her down a dark alley.
Yeah. Can I talk to you a little bit about Drive?
Yes.
Okay, so I did a list, and on that list I did the 50 largest taxi companies in the UK. Okay, so Drive all came out of nowhere in terms of the numbers. Okay, and so have you sold the business now?
Yes.
Okay, you've sold that business to Visu.
We've sold the business. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So how many more? Is this what's going to happen now? Is this your new business plan? You buy taxi companies because you know them inside out, build them up to a massive number, and then flog them to Visu at a massive profit. Is that the plan?
No, not at all. That was just a one-off thing that happened.
I was going to say if you wanted, because I'd happily get involved in that if there's any offers going.
No, and I'm not sure Visu would be happy if I did that again.
Yeah.
So I got my ear bent by Nathan for it, but circumstances just appeared. Which worked for me and worked for Visu at the same time, where we something just came up and we had an agreement that we could wander off and build a business, which I wasn't involved with, because Chris Hall, in theory, needs all the credit for.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about Chris.
As much advice and we did do a lot together, but Chris in theory was completely in charge of that, and now he's at Visu and doing a fantastic job there as well. And they've given him plenty of leeway to influence that business, and I think, and that's the good side about it, because Chris has come up through the ranks with me for maybe 15, 16 years. I'm not quite sure how long we've been together now, but we've been together a long time, and his knowledge is amazing.
So was Chris with you at Amber?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Chris was
my GM at Amber. Yeah.
So he was your GM at Amber, and then him and yourself set up with.
No, Chris actually set it up with another guy. Chris left the Visu group because he couldn't get on with the corporate world. So he sort of set it up with another guy, and it didn't work out how it should do, and it was floundering a little bit. And I managed to persuade the CEO at Visu at that point. I was their group operations director at that point. That I needed to go and sort of help Chris out, and we come to a bit of a deal of how we could do it. And off I went. I didn't even go off. I went, and then sort of I invested in that with Chris and we, and Paul Green. There were three partners in there: Chris, Paul Green, and myself. Well, my wife. And off we went. My wife was the CFO, and I think 7 years we built it from new to, I can't remember how many, I think maybe nearly 1,000 cars when we sold it.
Yeah, I think it was a bit more. Yeah, I think so.
Chris will know.
Yeah. But I just remember being absolutely astounded. Yeah. And did you say that was through acquisition?
Yeah, but acquisition and growth.
And growth, yeah. Okay.
We just worked hard at it. You know, we all worked hard at it.
Okay. So you've got a great relationship with Chris Hall. Another great relationship that you've got is a mutual best friend of ours, which is Mr. Craig Pollock.
Craig, yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Craig go back a long way. I think he first started working for me again all them years ago, maybe 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah, I think like when you look into the industry and you see people who call it mentor or apprentice relationships, you guys have got an amazing one. Yeah. And so that's over the years.
Smart is Craig though. If you look at when Craig first came,
yeah,
and he was working for me doing my SMS marketing and all that sort of thing through that period of time, he got himself involved with the food delivery business.
Yeah.
Before Uber Eats were about and Just Eat and everything like that, he sort of understood that market and got involved with it. And he told me, I'm leaving, I've got this. And I liked him that much and he works that well. Mm-hmm. I said, look, Craig, don't just use my offices, carry on with your food delivery and help me at the same time. So he did that and he stayed, and we've worked together ever since. Like you said, AirPay is a great product of ours now that we got.
Yeah, so AirPay, I think. So when I set up Dotted, and I've obviously got the office and I was ready to roll because I knew that I could. It wasn't that I didn't need any money off anyone, okay? Because we're the service-led business, as you said with iCabbi at the start. You just need the contracts with customers who are going to say, right, you pay us X amount per month for this service, and all I needed to do was make sure I had
you have plenty of people doing that.
Make sure everything's covered and stuff like that. AirPay was my first one, and it came through the door because ultimately, like again,
I told him I didn't think it were a good idea. To be fair,
did you not? Did you?
I did, but he ignored me.
Don't want to be working with him, fucking hell. But
I'm a new fan. That's two of them now.
So Craig had come to the office. You came to the office. You met the sales guys. We did everything, and we got rocking, and everyone loved it. It was and they still do. So you've just launched 2.0. Or
yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle. But look at all the things that are going wrong with security nowadays, and people getting hacked. And version 1 was getting weak on security, and when you're in the payment industry, you have to be quite strong on security. So as people, more and more people came onto it, because it's a great product. That's another thing. When I remember we bought a business in Liverpool, the Visu group bought a business in Liverpool, and I did a little bit of due diligence on it, and I noticed that these guys in Liverpool, excuse me, were like, they were asking people whether they wanted. Somebody would ring up and they'd say, "Yeah, do you want to pay by card or by cash?" And they'd say, "We'd pay by card." So then they'd filter the job out. They'd put an attribute on the job to say they want a car that had a card reader in it. Yeah. And only 35% of the fleet had a card reader. So if they've got, just say they had 500 cars on or 1,000 cars on, they'd only have access. That customer would only have access to a third of the fleet. Yeah. And that's like, I'm saying to them, but you've now, because someone wants to pay by card, their service levels have just dropped by 2/3. But why don't you just put AirPay in? Oh, we don't like, but blah, blah, blah. But it solves that problem. It solves all them problems. Yeah. Everybody can pay by card when they want, and the driver can't force them into paying cash neither.
No, that's the problem.
It is a good product.
Yeah, because the drivers, the problem with drivers is they don't want to take card payments. Yeah. Then the device always happens to be not working.
AirPay puts it in the hand of the customer. It sends them a link, says if you want to pay by card, just click it. You can pay for it even before they've had the journey.
So like in terms of Visu use it.
Yeah.
Across the board.
Across the board, yeah.
And is that the primary payment tool?
No, the app is probably their primary payment tool.
Right,
people
okay.
Booking on the app and paying by app, card and cash. 50%, just less than 50% of the work still comes from dispatch, not from app.
Right, okay.
So there's a massive market there, and that's what, a lot of the meetings that we have within Veezu, if I'm involved with them on an advisory role, it's more, and that's why they're successful, because they're flexible. They understand that, there's, I always used to say to people, a taxi company's got two sets of customers. The driver's is a customer because he pays you every week, and the customer's a customer because they pay as well. Yeah. So, and balancing them two. If you do something that's good for driver, it's normally not good for customer. If you do something that's good for customer, it's normally not good for driver. So it's like the scales of justice. You've got to balance that and keep it going. And I think you've got to do exactly the same thing now with technology and dispatch and, the customer that rings you up. That's not going to go away anytime soon. It's a massive market, so we've got to keep an eye on it. And I see a lot of people ignoring it now, and it's just such a terrible thing to do.
Do you think it is? But you said it's not going to go away anytime soon. Do you not think it's in terms of that demographic that ring up surely is decreasing year by year in comparison to the people?
It's a long time before it's going to disappear. It's a long time. There's lots of my brother, my sister, late 50s, early...
All call taxi.
They don't know what apps are.
Yeah.
They're not bothered for them. There's lots of people like that. A lot of people... Do you know what? A lot of people just like to talk to somebody. And it's a lot better if you can physically get somebody to give you a bit of... I mean, I think I booked an Uber the other day for some friends who'd been round at our house, and they must have changed the driver 6 times. You know? Whereas I'm thinking, I can't ring up and say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, pack it in.
In terms of basically some advice from you then, because as you're aware, the areas where fleets opened, where Uber local operated, Uber then opened up in those areas, and they've offered 80% discounts, or on not on a trip. 2 weeks, 4 weeks in. I think Peterborough might have been 4 weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But that is a ridiculous amount of time and all that. So you as a pioneer, should we say, in this industry, what would you say to them fleets? And I'm not talking about your 500 cars. Imagine I've got 70 cars. And all of a sudden Uber's opened up and now they are offering these discounts. I can't afford to offer them discount. What do I do?
Well, I think first of all, you've got to ride it out because they don't do it forever.
Yeah.
So you've got to ride it out. You've got to make sure your service is good throughout that period of time. Make sure your drivers are loyal, which is the difficult one. So maybe you have to adjust certain things to keep them, certainly rents and things like that to keep them going. But it will stop. It will stop, and it does level out. And the real important thing is that you know who your customers are. They've been ringing you forever. So when it stops and things ease out and everything like that, market to them. And when you market to them, market that you're local. Because people do like local things. People do appreciate, there's this big American corporation that's come in and they're trying to, ruin our local businesses. And you can play on that. You can play on your localism. Because localism, I think, is really, really important.
And what do you think's the next for the industry? As in, what happens? What happens next? Do you think Uber's just kind of keep on growing new areas, and that's going to hurt us, or what's coming? What's around the corner?
I think there's going to be a nice blend. If you look at supermarkets, let's take Tesco's, the biggest supermarket in the UK, but you've still got Morrison's, you've still got Aldi, you've still got Lidl. There is room for more than just Uber's not going to kill everybody. Yeah. There's room but there's going to be a lot of more like Take Me's and your Visus and your bigger businesses. The small guy is probably going to mould into the NHS and the school runs and that sort of thing, and maybe the more day trips and airports and things like that's probably going to happen. But the market will be there, but it is shrinking. There's no question about it. It is shrinking.
Right, so slightly off topic for you, but at a bit of a curveball. The reason I'm asking you about this is because there's a lot of, and it's been brought up by every single guest I've had, right? And it's about whether we should be able to share work across dispatchers. Okay, that's point one of my question, okay? And point two of my question, from a supplier point of view, so whether you're an AirPay or whoever, before you can sell to a fleet, you got to get the okay from the dispatcher, okay? Do you believe the dispatch providers have too much power within this industry?
Yeah, but I can't see it changing. Yeah.
And that's not for me to say whether they have or not, or they should, or what should change, but what I mean is
I can't see it changing unless everybody decides to jump onto one platform. If you looked at Autocab back in the day when we were there, it was 90% of the fleets were on Autocab.
Yeah.
If you looked at that, then that's where they were. 90% of the fleets were on Autocab, and they had power, but the power was wielded in a reasonable way.
Yeah.
He understood how to keep his customers happy. He'd give some things that probably people won't give now. He'd let you do things that probably people, but he kept you loyal. that them days have gone. But I see that could happen with iCabbi.
What do you mean? Sorry,
I see that could happen with iCabbi if like you've just said, a big fleet's moving. I'm going to presume it's going to be moving to iCabbi. I'll presume that, and I think if somebody gets dominant, and that dominant dispatch provider is smart enough to keep its customers close to him and give them what they need, so they don't walk away, then I think that it could be fantastic for everybody.
Yeah, because my relationship with iCabbi and like why I get on with them and whatnot, I think they've maintained that relationship piece, because they're like these bunch of Irish lads who I love going seeing in Dublin and have a cracking time with. Yeah. But then they've got their Renault corporate backing as well to get shit done. Does that make sense?
Days, they must have missed a few days off work. Because they just party really hard, them guys, don't they?
No comment on that one. But I just want to be that's something that's to be clear. I've had a keel on. I want to get other dispatchers on. I think the Cordic CEO is going to be joining us soon, and so I want him on as well. So love to hear what he said. So I think that might level it out a little bit, shall we say? I will close by asking you, mate, what is next for Andy Pennock?
Well, I'm doing another project with Craig at the moment.
Right.
So we've got an AI business, a little AI business that's, I say little, hopefully it's just about to get some funding.
Lovely.
Called One Touch, and it's all about taking bookings for restaurants. Yeah. It's working really, really well.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to that coming on. We've got some investors hopefully involved, putting a substantial amount of money in it to make it grow. We've just got contracts signed with two really big booking platforms that are not just UK wide but worldwide. Yeah. So hopefully, I'm not involved day to day with it. Craig's sort of the person that's heading that up, and David, who's another partner in there. Yeah. He's a developer and he's really, really good. So I think AI is for our business. I think AI is going to be fantastic if you get the platform right. And again, I probably believe that Visu should probably own their own AI as well. I think it's going to be the next big booking platform, and I think they should be putting their effort into that side of it. On that note, I want to say a massive, massive thank you, mate. The amount of respect I've got for you is unbelievable. You're a top man, and. Like I said, I think we need a bet for charity. Go on then. The Leeds finish above. I can't even say the name. Leeds finish above them. Oh, all right, okay. 100 quid. 100 quid. Yeah. I thought, how about we? We've got to go to an event, but wearing the other person's shirt. I was like, do it. Yeah, you've got to wear a United shirt. I'll wear a Leeds shirt. 100 quid. 200 quid. All right, I'll take that. Give it to charity. I'll take that. Right, you're a top man. Thank you, my mate, for everything. Yeah. Legend. Welcome. Cheers. Right, thank you. Thanks, guys. One for the road. One for the road, are you ready? Let us sit and talk. Take a sip and talk. One for the road, everybody. Let us sit and talk.